Yay Media Group.
What's up, everybody? This is Cornelius. Welcome to This Is Life with Heather and Cornelius. So, if I did not come across as the usual, it's because I really want to have a very serious conversation with you. Unfortunately, my wife isn't with me today. Our children have been under the weather. Parents, you know exactly how that is. And we got to be parents. And this is that is some of the reason why I would love to have this talk with you. But the main part comes in about really two things. Number one, who are you? And then number two, what do you really want out of life? If you have been, linked up with this podcast for as long as we have been here, which I think has been like 8 or so years, it's been a while. Even before it was called This Is Life, it was called Life with the Lindsays. And if you followed our journey, then it brings you, you have a little bit more of an understanding of what I want to talk about. So rewind all the way back. I was born in a little small town in Mississippi called Newton. I was born in Newton Regional Hospital. They didn't even have a nursery unit. They didn't have a NICU unit. When I was born, the doctors actually had to take files out of a filing cabinet, and they put blankets down the filing cabinet. That's where they put me. They just didn't have the setup for it. It's just a little small town, and I went from that to ultimately moving to Atlanta, Georgia, with my folks in 2000. I started high school there at Riverdale High School in Riverdale, Georgia, Clayco, Nuck if you buck. And I went from there to ultimately got married, and my wife and I, we relocated to Jackson, Mississippi for probably about a year and a half. And then afterwards, we left Jackson and we moved back to Atlanta. After that, started a church. We started a church in January 2013, and I pastored that church until turning it over at the top on January 1st of 2021. And it was a journey. And a big piece of that journey was me having this idea of who I was and what I really wanted. I wrote a book. My last book that I published was called Escape the Box. And the reason why I wrote that book is because I had an idea of who I was. I had an idea of what I wanted to do. But because of my youthfulness, because of my zeal, I just kind of jumped into, I don't know, it's just like, this is what I'm really good at, or this is what I think I can do. So I'm just going to just do that and just kind of do more of that. And I did it. And I would dare to say that I was extremely successful at doing it. The problem comes in is that, my problem was that I was so focused on achievement and constantly achieving that I never really had time to just figure out who I am. I'll never forget sitting down with my therapist in 2020. And my therapist looked at me and he said, Cornelius, he said, what do you like to do for fun? And y'all, I wanted to cuss him out. I did. There's probably, I'm sure if you go down the line, there's probably a podcast of me talking about it. I wanted to cuss Ryan out. Not because of who he was, but because the question angered me so much. I had lived, more than 3 decades, and I still didn't know what I liked. I didn't know what I like to do for fun. I have no idea. I looked at him, I said, I got to go to the gym. And he said to me, you like pain? Is pain your form of fun? And I'm just like, well, I don't know. He's like, well, what do you like to do? You like to go fishing? And I'm like, well, I don't really go fishing. He's like, you like to go bowling? I'm like, I don't go bowling. You like to go skating? I don't like to go skating. You like to go hiking? I don't go hiking. Do you like to do this? I don't like to do that. Do you like to play video games? I don't play video games. Do you like to watch TV? I don't like to watch TV. I don't really watch anything on TV. I maybe watch the same thing. I watch The Office over and over again. I don't really do anything else. And he just said, well, maybe we need to take some time to really figure out who Cornelius is. And I thought, that would be cool, but what about all the things I have to do? All of the stuff that still needs to be achieved and all the things in my life that, all the goals that I still had. And I wrestle with even taking the time to think, like, is he right? Like, who am I? And what do I really want? Like, have you seriously taken the time to sit down and ask yourself the question, like, who am I and what do I want? I was on an airplane here recently. I'm sitting next to this guy. He looks over at me and he says, what do you do? That's usually the question that I get from people. What do you do? Just, I don't know. I guess he's trying to figure out why this guy's sitting in first class next to him with, I have on a hoodie and some sweats and some Asics. And, he's decked out in a suit and he's like, ooh, what do you do? And that's usually my response is typically my best. And he said, that was a good one. But, seriously, like, what do you do? Because, that's typically the question that people ask each other, especially when they're trying to figure out how they're going to value you. If I were to say, well, I'm a CEO, then that's that's who you are. If I would say I'm a janitor, he would say, oh, okay. So that allows for people to ascribe a certain level of value to you. And I said, well, I do many things. But mostly I just do my best. And he said, well, he's been a business executive for some oil company for all these years and all this stuff. And he was explaining to me about the money he's been able to make and the houses he's been able to buy and this and that and all these other kind of things. And I just looked at him and I said, have you enjoyed any of it? And he thought, and he said, he hit the flight attendant button. Lady came back. He said, could you please bring me another beer? Beer comes back, pops it open. He looks at me and he says, nobody has ever asked me that question before. I said, well, maybe it's time for you to answer it. Did you enjoy any of it? Have you enjoyed it? He said, I've enjoyed making money. I said, yeah, that's enjoyable. It's definitely enjoyable to make money. I said, is that it? He said, well, I enjoyed being able to buy things. I said, yeah. I mean, it's fun to be able to go and buy the multi-million-dollar house. It's fun to be able to go buy the yacht and to have the yacht that nobody else has. I mean, that stuff is fun. I said, but do you ever just sit down and just said, I really enjoy what I do? He said, well, sometimes I really enjoy the travel because, it gets me out of the house and be around the family and the wife is just yeah all day. And I said, oh, that's cool. I said, but did you really enjoy it? He looked and he said, no. I said, well, what is something that you've always wanted to do? He said, well, something I've always wanted to do was, he said, I wanted to play basketball because I've always loved basketball. He said, but, it kind of tapered off. I just kind of stopped playing. And I don't know. I just don't know what I want to do now. He said, I stopped playing basketball and I'm just kind of doing whatever I'm doing now. And I just looked at him and I said, well, why don't you start playing basketball now? I'm not saying to quit your job. I'm not saying to turn your stuff in. I'm just saying, why don't you just pick up with a league, put some people around your age, or just go find a court and just start playing. And he said, I think I want to start doing that. And the reason that I was even asking him the question to and get an idea of what this man liked to do was because, like him, I had veered so far away from things that made me me and brought me joy just so I can fulfill this thing of life of being able to say, well, this is what I have now, or this is what I can buy now, or this is what I can do now. I sat in my therapist's office. I sat there with Ryan and I had listed off all these accolades and all these achievements just to finish and say, it still wasn't enough because it didn't fulfill anything in me. At the end of the day, it was, as Ecclesiastes say, it was just all meaningless. It was like, well, this is something that's cool. I'm doing it. It's great, but it doesn't fulfill anything in me. And I really want you to take some time, like really sit down and ask yourself the question, like, is what I'm doing, is it fulfilling something in me? And you can have your job, you can have your place of employment, all that stuff is fair. All that stuff is cool. You can have your place of employment, what you do, because that's just your work. That's what you do for 8 hours a day or whatever it is, because that's just something you have to do in order to pay your bills. Because the reality of this is you can't quit your job just so you want to just pursue, mountain biking because that's what you love to do, because you still got to be able to pay for your house, you got to pay for your car, you got to pay for car insurance, you got to pay for registration, you got to pay for all that stuff. I mean, nowadays, heck, if I want $1 million, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do simple stuff. Y'all trying to go out and buy a $900,000 house. I'm going to do simple stuff like going to pay my car registration. I'm going, I want to do simple stuff like going to pay for, 24 dozen, eggs. That's what I want to do. I want to be able to do like simple stuff. But I understand you got to have your place of employment, whatever that is. But really ask yourself the question, have you somehow gotten away from the very things that brought you happiness and brought you joy? Like, have you gotten away from those things? Have you stopped taking the time to do what those things are? I sat down in Kentucky, and I'll tell you more about this here as I continue. But I sat down, and part of this process of discovering my life plan was to determine my replenishment cycle. How am I replenished? What do I do to replenish myself? And the goal was, I sat there with my facilitator and I had to write down 6 things on the board. I gave him 6 things to write down. I said, these are potentially 6 different ways that I replenish myself, meaning that these are things that I can do and I feel energized afterwards. And he wrote these 6 things down. And the goal was to go through all 6 of them and to list them, to level them 1 through 6. 1 being most important and 6 being least important. The bottom 3 I eliminated. Number 1 I wrote down, go to the gym. Now for me, you've heard my wife and I, we talk about it before. No matter where I go to, no matter what time I land, when I get to the resort, when I get to the hotel, the first thing I want to do is go to the gym. My wife and I know we can land in the prettiest of places with the nicest of beaches, beautiful resort. My wife and I have our own, private pool, out back. They just checked us into our room. We've been flying all day, and my wife already knows when we get to the room, she starts to get comfortable because she knows she's going to be ready to take a nap, and she's like, "You going to the gym?" I'm going to the gym. That's usually her time to either take a nap or she's gonna book her spa appointments, because my wife is going to make sure she goes to the spa, because that's how she replenishes herself. Massages is how she replenishes herself. She loves a massage. She loves it, loves it, loves it, loves it, loves it. Me, I cannot sit there long enough. No, an hour massage is like a nightmare. It's like torture to me. But I got to go to the gym. That's how I replenish myself. Every single day, I go to the gym. That's how I replenish myself. Sometimes it's not even the fact that I want to work out. Sometimes it's just me just walking in and being like, okay, I'm here. I feel the energy. I'm around what I believe to be other warriors and people who are getting after it and serious about their health. It just does something to me, and that's how I can be replenished. And then I go from that to, okay, number 2, being alone. I guess I get cautious about calling myself an introvert. Maybe I have morphed into more of an ambivert, which means that I have the qualities of that of an extrovert and an introvert. Now, in relationship, I am more of the introvert. Most of my friendships, I would probably say 99.9% of my friendships have been extroverts rescuing me as an introvert. They bring me in because I could be a bit of an introvert. But I have to have that alone time. As a pastor, getting up on the stage, preaching to people, and then going in the lobby and talking to them afterwards, and talking to them before they get there, and talking to them after they get there, and talking to the leaders, and talking to this person, talking to that person. By the time I get home, I am so drained. Just my social meter is gone, and I need at least I need some hours, need some time, and that's a great time to usually go to the gym. But number 1, go to the gym. Number 2 is that I'm gonna need me some alone time. I need me some time to just kind of get away. And then number 3, it was travel. I need to be able to go, either go somewhere with my wife, go somewhere with my family, go somewhere by myself, or go somewhere with my friends. I need to be able to leave. I need to be able to sleep in a different bed, to see a different wall, to see a different view, to be around different people so I can have a different experience. But I needed to figure out what that replenishment cycle was. Because if I do not honor my replenishment cycle, if I do not honor the way that I am replenished and I am refueled, then I'm going to just continue to be tired. And there's no way that I can fulfill the journey that ultimately I set. So like, really, what is it that you like to do? Have you taken the time to figure that out yet? What is it that you really like to do? Do you like to bowl? Do you like games? I was on a call a couple weeks ago, and one of the guys, he said, I'm so excited because he said on Friday, he's going to meet up with some of his friends and they're going to play some new, Dungeon and Warriors game. I don't know what it was. And some of the other guys kind of laughed at him. I was like, oh, what is that? They kind of laughed at the dude. And I just thought, man, that's so cool. Like, it may be something that's, completely outside of my wheelbox. I have no idea what Dungeons and Dragons or Warriors and Warlocks, whatever it is. But he was so excited about just being able to meet up with, he said, and possibly meet some new people playing this game. I thought, man, that's so dope. That this guy, although it may be different to what other guys do, this guy has found something he really likes to do. And maybe your thing may not be Dungeons and Dragons or Dungeon and Warriors. And if you know what I'm talking about and I'm butchering it, forgive me. Your thing may be, you may be a gamer and you may love Call of Duty. You may be a gamer and you may love, what is the thing, the Pokemon thing. Just don't, walk around and get hit by a car or something. You may like Pokemon or you may like, what is it? Fortnite. My kids love Fortnite. I try to play Fortnite with them. I only play with them so they can snipe me. That's about all I do. I can't get it. I don't understand it. I can't. I probably could get it if I sat down long enough. I just can't. But you probably have video games that you love to play. And that may be something that you really like to do. And somehow you've allowed for life to just kind of keep you away from that thing that does replenish you because you need it. Or somebody else has told you that you're being selfish because you're taking time for yourself because you like to hike. And you haven't been on a hike in a long time, or maybe it's, you like to surf, or you like to ski, or you like to bake, and you got away from baking because life just demanded everything from you. And you're saying, well, I hear what you're saying, Quintus, but I got kids now, and I got this now, and I can't do this, and I can't do that anymore. And I'm telling you, you have to start making time for yourself. Because you cannot pour out of an empty cup. So how do you get replenished? How do you continue to step back up to the game and say, I'm ready to do this again. I'm ready to start again. We're all working hard throughout the week to get to Friday so that we can have some type of enjoyment for the weekend. But what good is it for you to just look forward to the weekend if you're not going to take time to actually do something that replenishes you? Because if we're honest, you spend all day Friday with a hope and expectation that I'm going to have off for the weekend. But let's just be honest. It's not really off. Friday is the only day you really turn off because Saturday, you're all thinking about Sunday. Because Sunday, you probably have a list of things that you want to get done that you can't do during the week. For many of us, Sunday, we need to go grocery shopping. We need to go buy this. We need to go buy that because we don't buy that. We don't have time to do those things during the week. Sunday, people are preparing themselves for work. So it's like, I really don't have time to really sit down to really enjoy myself because Sunday, when I did have a 9-to-5 job, I remember Sundays, like around 4 or 5 o'clock, I have that little pit of my stomach, like my stomach will start to hurt. Cause it's like, oh crap, Monday's going to be here. And then the whole time I'm getting to bed and I'm like, oh, I got to go to bed because I got to get ready for Sunday. I got to get ready for Monday because Monday's coming. So now really ask yourself the question, like, how do I replenish myself? How do I replenish myself? How do I replenish myself? What do I like to do and why have I stopped doing it? I just want you to figure out what that is. Maybe to do the same exercise I did. 6 things that you really, really like to do. And then number them 1 to 6. 1 being the highest, 6 being the lowest. Mark out the top 3 and then make a plan that says, I am going to honor my cycle. I'm going to honor what it is that brings me replenishment and brings me joy. Now, next week, I want to go even deeper with this. And I want to talk about how my journey of aimlessness, like what that felt like, what that looked like, and then how I was able to ultimately come out of it. So thank you for joining me. I know this is going to be a little change of mood for our podcast at times, but I really want to have these serious conversations with you so that you can get an understanding of, like, if some things in my life needs to change, they need to change. I want them to change for the better. I want us to have a good time. I want us to learn some things, but ultimately, I want you to grow. Okay? So God bless you. Thank you for joining me. Make sure you share this with your family and friends. Somebody out there maybe need this. Be a friend. Share it with 1 or 2 people. Make sure you subscribe. Stay with us. Okay? Lock in. Introduces.
Yay Media Group.